Alright, so this is a second video I'm making about me beating this map alone, and this time, with the objective now being more clear in my mind from the start, that we want to only aim to destroy player 11, player 12, and player 13. Just the orange player's military buildings, including the town hall for player 13. So just barracks, schoolhouses, and storehouses, and this building, just for those players. Based on my experience and all my comments and additional footage that I had in the first video, I kind of deduced this plan, and I wasn't sure if it was going to work. I wanted to give it a try, and it worked out. So basically these two AI players, 7 and 8, that I spent the first 52 minutes of my previous game destroying, this time I didn't go for them. Player 8, the one that's currently in red, that one will defend. The scout will defend, and I'll talk about that a few times throughout this replay commentary. And later on, also other groups, specifically these bowmen and maybe these lance carriers and these scout here also. But anyway, for those who don't want to watch another long video, this will not be as long as that video was. That video was 2.5 hours. And for anyone who wants to watch it and just see me talk about these towns and haven't seen it, I have the video timestamped so you can see that. Because I destroyed players 11, 12, and 13 in a similar way to I did in that video, but more efficiently. Well, at least players 11 and 13, not so much 12. 12 is about the same efficiency, but less deaths and actually a more practical approach. So basically what I'm trying to say is, in this approach I go for player 10 first. This is an edit. I said player 10, but I mean player 16. So I might say player 10 again, but I mean player 16. Player 10 is the player that defends players 15 and 17 pretty well. But ironically, they don't defend him, and player 8 doesn't defend them either. At least not this part. The inner town here is not defended by anyone. So because he defends, but it's not defended himself, that motivated me to see if I could actually take him out as early as possible in the game. And I did. And then the next player I took out was player 15, which took much longer because he has a schoolhouse and a storehouse down here. And then next, I will put in troops into this village, player 6, but not take it out, because basically these bowmen here are not filled in yet, but by the time that I was going to try to sneak troops into player 6, these bowmen were going to become more plentiful, and that alone makes it much harder to sneak in without getting killed, because I don't have knights at the beginning. And I don't like losing troops. So after I sneak in troops in player 6's town, I'm going to go take out player 17. And then immediately after, then I will take them out. And I actually finish, completely kill all their serfs for all of these villages right at the hour mark. So within the first hour, those 3 players are pretty much dead. Then I'll focus on building my town somewhat, and then around an hour and 45 minutes, I will attack player 11 and take him out within a few minutes, very quickly. Unlike last time that it was about more than a few, maybe it was about 10 minutes, I'm not sure exactly how much. But once I'm done spending time killing all these crossbowmen that he will have, because these will all fill in 3 rows deep, except for the knights, which will fill in 4 rows deep. Immediately after all that's done, I will go and take out player 13, and I penetrate player 13 in 9 minutes instead of 23 minutes like it was in my previous win. And then I go for player 12 in a similar fashion that I did before, but I would say much more feasible. At the same time, I'm going to build the AI trap here that I did for the
life slips away
player, and building my town up and all that. And starting to build my town a little bit earlier than I did last time, which also helped with efficiency. I actually aim to beat it in 3 hours or 2 hours and 59 minutes and 59 seconds, something like that, just something below 3 hours, but it just didn't work out. Just too many obstacles costed me time here and there, and so when you add it up, it could have been 17 minutes less. So let's get started. And I'm going to show the side panel here because I'm going to focus on showing you what I focused on, which was the number of serfs and laborers and recruits that were being trained or existed in each of the towns that I go destroy, because that's the ultimate objective. They have this many schoolhouses in various places. You want to know whether they're alive or dead, then you know when you can leave and move on to the next. I'm going to leave 1 scout behind. I have all 6, but I'm going to leave 1 behind so I can use the link before dead trick. because I'm going to use that again. It's probably the most powerful tool available for this type of run. So these sword fighters here are in the way that I'm going to use close proximity to bind them to this single scout here. And then I'm going to do the link before dead trick for him too. So these two groups right here are going to still be here. I'm not going to kill them. So anyway, they are not, once he dies, they are not going to follow him. They're going to return to their post. But that doesn't matter because this is player 15 and I don't want to kill it right away. I'm going to go player 16. Just that one, and then just someone right here to get the majority of player 16's troops out. And I'm going to show this part right here. I just rewinded because it's too much to see at once. So now that we know what happens with that single scout, I want to show how this was hard, very painstaking work to not hit anything, not get in close proximity, and especially after he dies, the troops like Knight are going to come through here. I'm going to click on this and show the side panel so we can see how many recruits are just starting to be trained now. As you can see, I made a sacrifice there, which is, when I say sacrifice, it's the link before dead trick. I'm going to have to make another one here where we can see that the number of serfs is decreasing. And at this time I have that AI trap there for them. I have my scout in here that did the link before dead trick, so that these troops from player 16 come here, and these barbarians can take anything as long as it's not crossbowmen firing at them. They're good, so I'm not worried about it. And I do have crossbowmen here, like I showed in the previous video, to get their attention so that they come after the crossbowmen instead of these building fences, which is technically the nearest building. So if you've seen the first video, that's all repetitive. Anyway, so at this point I go back and forth because I only have 2 scout to kill them. Just the serfs, but I'm going to eventually hit a building to try to kill laborers too. We can see when this goes down to nothing. One more serf. Okay, so at 11 minutes and 35 seconds, player 16 is dead. This player caused so many problems for me in my first win with this map that I was absolutely determined to kill him early. I pretty much declared war on him, and that's what made the difference in the win time. So now I'm going to aim to destroy this player here, and when I do, it's going to take me 30 minutes, not 11. Again, because there's a storehouse and schoolhouse down here. So still slow with my village because that took a lot of my time. But we'll get to that later. We'll have plenty of time to see that. Right now it's action towards beating these players here. So right now I'm just emptying these towers and I'm exploring some land. But I'm going to take a scout and a crossbowman over here to start drawing out or luring out. I noticed that this group would come with a fire from the crossbowmen, so I said let me do that because I can't pass through, I can't sneak through here without getting in close proximity to them. So now I can come in with the scout and just simply not sacrifice him. I want to save him, just hit a building after I empty the tower. One thing to mention also is that when I hit this building, it draws out this group of crossbowmen because their defense radius is greater than 1. And so I don't actually kill them. What I do is I'm going to hit them with one of my crossbowmen, make a sacrifice. I have them here so that they go back home. so I don't have to deal with them, because I just don't have the resources right now to deal with them. And I'm going to have 2 scout here, and I'm going to start getting harassed by player 8 soon enough. They're going to send scouts from here once they're made, because right now the scout that were here, I actually just looked, they're not there. They were gone when I made that first sacrifice over here, before I even brought in these 4 scout to kill player 16. So they still haven't been replenished yet because it's so early in the game, but they will be soon enough. So I'm again going to focus on the number of serfs, and I hit the building on purpose. That's very important, to kill laborers, to slow it down, because my goal right now is not, I know that player 8 is going to come and mess everything up, but I'm just trying to slow down, if not stop, if I'm lucky, production of recruits, so I don't have any more troops to fight. But that's why I have 2 here instead of 1, because you can do a one-on-one, but the scout's going to lose to any iron armored troop one-on-one, except for crossbowmen, of course. There might be some exceptions when he doesn't lose to a sword fighter, but it's extremely rare. So around 39 minutes or so, I will completely finish taking out this player, just to let you know. But I'm going to eventually have a scout. Oh, I did. I had the scout come in here. But I'm going to now have one of those 2 scouts return, because he's fed. I fed him, but the other 2 are hungry, so I needed to swap them. So this makes things a little bit dangerous, but right now he is only producing 2 recruits, it seems like. You see the +2 for those who don't know. And I'm going to send these barbarians in soon enough. That was probably the hardest part of this whole thing, was to get them through, because now these crossbowman groups are 12 instead of 4, but even with 4, they're deadly to them. Just a few crossbowman arrows kills them. So it's a little risky, but I'm drawing out troops right now, and I reload a few saves, I think, so that these few recruits that are being produced will be something other than knight, because I noticed that the knight group that usually is right here is sensitive to this area, but none of the other groups are. So if I have 2 scout vertically beneath this door of the schoolhouse, then it didn't draw any group except for the knights. So all I did was, I didn't care if it was pikemen or sword fighters, whatever. As long as I reloaded saves whenever that happened, that it was a knight that was created, that was good. That was the key thing here. So it was very painstaking work, very difficult. I was sweating throughout this one. This was the hard part, with the barbarians coming through. I emptied the tower earlier, and these towers were not filled yet, so that definitely helped. But I let them rest over here. They just can't take these arrows. If you let them rest, then they'll fully recover somehow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send 1 up here to this schoolhouse and put it in front of the door, because now all the troops are gone around there that defended it, that area, to start killing this player's serfs. So that's my goal. So now we're going to start counting down, and I'm going to stop the serfs from coming here too. So we can see that number of serfs starting to decrease. Player 8 is starting to attack me now, so I have to get out of here as soon as possible, because player 8 is starting to become more productive, making more and more scouts as time goes on. But this was a key place to put him. This also attracts player 8. But I'm going to move them over into player 16's territory, like further down into their territory, right over here. Because, go to the map editor, and we click on players 8 scout here, click the people and then the shield, and then this to see their defense radius. It ends right here. So if I just fight them in this area right here, because I think there might be towers with recruits in them with stone, so I don't want to go too far in, but right here, if I fight them right here, as I do here, then they're going to stop sending waves. So once I kill these last scout, that's the end of their attacking me. And now player 15 is dead. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sneak in some troops into player 6's town, but not take them out just yet. So I made a link before dead trick with the crossbowmen because it works with crossbowmen too. And I just linked it with one of these crossbowmen in here. So player 6 is going to send all his troops over there to that trap I have. And I already emptied, oh, I didn't empty it yet, I emptied it now. And I put them here to stay for later. Eventually some serfs might pile up here and I had to reload some saves because then my vagabond or scout would hit them and let everyone know that I was here. So that was a little problem, but not too much of a problem. And this time, obviously I used vagabonds to kind of help out, just have an extra warm body if nothing else. But it's good to have at least 3 in here because you need 1 to have the link before dead trick, which I'll show in a little bit. And you need to have at least 2 to kill the 13 or so recruits that are coming here, because you can reload saves and at this point, and they will fill in this bowman group with crossbowmen and this, and create a new group here for another group of 12 crossbowmen. But that would take too long, so I just decided to have 2 or more, which I'll have 3 this time, to kill pikemen or sword fighters or whatever troop is created from the barracks while I'm killing the serfs, after I do the link before dead trick and draw them all out. But immediately after that, I'm coming to this player and I'm going to take out the hideous player 17. And what do I do it with? You'll see. It's kind of hysterical. Very weak units. You guessed it, vagabonds. I saw this, that there was no recruit in the tower. He was eating. I was so excited. But then he comes back in, but it didn't matter. I hit them in that sweet spot that I mentioned in the previous video, that it's right here in the middle on the side. That will draw out both sides of pikemen and sword fighters, as you see. So I'm going to do a link before dead trick, and then they are going to go. My scout now is no longer in here. Well, actually I linked them with him, with this vagabond, but I'm eventually going to do something with him, but it doesn't matter. That part's easy. Just want to show you this. So I have to do a link before dead trick, which I'm going to use the vagabond, of course. So let's look at player 17 serfs. And that's it. He's dead. Pretty much. He's almost okay now. So now I'm going to do the link before dead trick for player 6. I missed that. So I'm going to go a little slower this time so you can see what I did. Again, I used the vagabond because he's going to die. And he's not engaging in battle with anybody. I had to find a good spot to hit them, that it's going to draw out even the lance carriers from up here. Right there. So it was important that I hit that building, and then I also hit some troops here so that it would draw out this lance carrier group. So hitting this building will draw out that lance carrier group and everything closer to it, with the exception of this lance carrier group that was down here, which with me hitting a troop over here drew that. So that's the end of that town. And now at this point we can focus on the number of serfs. Some serfs are feeding the troops here, but I'm sending them here with that vagabond that I linked to before dead. You have to pull them in at the right angle because it's enough troops to destroy this little outpost. And you have to time things right. I had troops from player 17 that I was going to bring here, and I brought part of them here, but part of them I actually brought up here to this outpost because there was too many troops here that I was not able to feed them in time, and they died, and that was a huge loss for me. because I do produce barbarians and they cost 8 gold each from the town hall. So I actually reloaded some save and redid a few minutes just for that to save all their lives. They all died. But that's the end of all those players, and so from this point we can focus on my town. I'm going to aim to start building the barracks as soon as possible around here, around hour and 23 minutes. Player 5 is going to send his attack wave, which includes a group of crossbowmen. I already took care of player 6, which was going to send an attack wave at 48 minutes, which is why when I took the crossbowmen here and did the link before dead trick and draw the first chunk out, then that prevented that attack at 48 minutes to happen. And then now, of course, I prevented the attack from an hour and onward from happening indefinitely by killing him. But anyway, so I want to build the barracks here eventually to be able to lure away the ranged units from the AI from my building fences and buildings, I guess I should say, from my barbarians. But let's take a look at my town. And that's all we need to focus on until an hour and 45 minutes. When I go attack player 11, that's the first of the 3 orange players. So yeah, basically at this point, I took out all the yellow players that I'm going to take out. That's it. Within the first hour, they're all dead. I ran out of wood. I wasn't paying attention. I was chopping all the wood instead of planting. And I moved my woodcutters around. So yeah, I ran out of wood. But that's what the market is for. Anyway. And I eventually use it for something, so why not here? I guess I should be ashamed, but I like my town this way, so I don't want any woodcutters up here. I like them down here. So this might have cost me a few minutes. I still wouldn't have beat it in 3 hours. But another note is that I destroyed this barracks for player 6 before I placed my first iron smithies, because in my previous win I didn't actually destroy this barracks. But don't talk, the map creator intended it to be that way. And one thing to mention about this is that I didn't build these watchtowers like I did in my first win, because the recruits, when they wanted to go eat, it would make me feel like this guy. Because they would wreck this front line I have, and when I'd be doing something great over here, all of a sudden my defenses were breached because of that, and it happened over, and I lost so many recruits to that. So I wanted to lose fewer civilians and also reload fewer saves. So right now, and I didn't mention it earlier, but this group right here, I had to turn my crossbowmen around in this AI trap to fire at them because there were so many groups that it doesn't catch them all. But also here, I wanted to mention that I'm placing these road and farm tiles, but I have this being ready to be built, and I'm going to take a few losses of laborers because I need to get this up. Because if I don't, the waves are not going to stop attacking me, because player 9 is going to start attacking soon enough, in addition to this player having this huge wave that delays me as it is. So here I took a loss with the laborer just to risk it, to get them to build this building as soon as possible so that I can build the barracks that's going to be here, because at hour and 23 minutes it's going to be attacked. So in addition to wood now that I kind of ran low on, I'm going to run low on food later, so I'm going to trade for food later. I think I'm going to trade timber for sausages, and then later timber for fish. I should have built a second fisheries, but I didn't. So again, in an hour and 45 minutes, I will start to focus on player 11. But right now, it's all building. I'm going to build a third armor smithy. Seems to get ahead of them a little later on, so I may or may not show it, but I will build a third one right above this one. But that's a perfect balance with the 2 stables I have here. It seems like that, it was, towards the end, it was the same amount of everything without me even trying. I have some Knight and Scout here because player 5 that I mentioned earlier, and also player 8 at 2 hours, is going to be sending ranged units, and I'm going to be, see, like this. So it works out if I put the barracks here, Not like in the previous one where I first start with a barracks up there. That's not necessary if you take out the AI in this order, at least. But I don't think it's ever necessary. You can just put one here and that's enough. And you're, of course, playing on player 1's location. Then you will have no problem with the crossbowmen and bowmen just coming and attacking this storehouse. And even the ranged units from these scripted waves from player 18. One thing also I was cautious with is that I have 2 iron mines here. Of course I have one there, but 2 here. I didn't put one here. I'm not sure if it's going to cause the AI scripted player 18 to go after it instead of the barracks, as I was afraid to, and that's why, if people are wondering why I didn't build more iron mines, that's why I didn't. But I had enough troops. I think it was as fast as I could go based on me defending at home, that I think that I couldn't beat this any faster than this. At least not that much faster, and I don't think that that would have had any effect on my win time. If you're going to try this out, just be cautious that you only build these 3 iron mines. Maybe not even this one, I'm not positive. Or this one, maybe you can build one here. But I just didn't. And also, I didn't show it, but if you put a vineyard here to knock down the tree that's here, then this will seal the entire area off from this end. Sometimes player 5 is going to send a few troops here and there, some scout barbarians, pikemen through here, and you'll have to kill them with maybe some knights. But other than that, no other players will ever sneak this way, from my knowledge. Maybe player 9 once in a while, but that it's not in this win. It was on a save reload that I fixed that. I don't know why he came that way. But this entire area is going to be sealed off. So I only had to keep track of 5 different murder holes, so to speak, for town defense. And I keep my ranged units around here. I'm going to eventually put them right here. And it'll be very effective. I didn't have any problems except for if I had a ranged unit here and he would turn around and fire right down here by these troops. Then it would destroy the building fence, but otherwise, I barely had to watch it. I could do whatever I wanted and it didn't matter. All I had to watch was keeping these crossbowmen and bowmen from building up, because as soon as they build up and block the whole way, they're going to start coming and making their way to these buildings here, and then eventually my barbarians are going to hit them and they're going to kill them, and it's going to all be over if I let that happen. But in addition, this time I need to mention that since I have multiple players, not just player 14's crossbowmen, but it'll also be player 5 and player 8 on occasion. So if this is filled up at any point and I kill just a few that they don't come here, but this is filled up, they made a full circle around this mountain, then they're going to come this way, the other groups from the other players. So it was important that I kept this clear the entire time, more than it was in my first win. That's just a very important side note for defense. But other than that, for town defense, I have nothing else to say. And by sealing this area off like this, I had to create fewer barbarians, so that worked out well. So I'm going to focus on now on player 11, because that's where I'm going to start attacking next, as I mentioned earlier. An important note is that player 8 scout that are right here are going to be a nuisance, but it's okay. But I'm going to surround, which I already have, I'm going to surround this weapon smithy, and I'm going to destroy it as soon as I do the link before dead trick to get out the first chunk of troops from player 11, which I'm going to zoom out so you can see from this point. I'm going to hide the side panel for now because it's not important. But as soon as I do, I'm going to destroy this and build a building fence here for an AI trap for these scout, just for a short period of time, so that I can kill these crossbowmen from player 11 without any attacks from them. But this time, unlike last time that I had a crossbowman here or a bowman here and I fired at them to lure out the first big chunk, I changed my mind and I said, let me bring him over here and let me see if this makes a difference. And it did. It made a big difference because I drew out both of these 2 front knight groups with it. He dies, but I do the link before dead trick with this crossbowman here that he's moving away because he was moving forward because he was going to come to this location. And by doing that, with him being there, they go this way, up through this way, so away from me and not on the side where I'm defenseless. So it works out very well. So now I'm going to destroy this building before player 8 recreates those scout. And I'm going to have a laborer. I might have a building fence that he's going to draw a laborer down here. No, I don't, but I will eventually. And put a storehouse or something there. You'll see. Link before dead. So now I'm in that quickly. It was more efficient than last time. But I do the same thing. I'm going to go for this storehouse because it's the only one with gold. And then we'll ultimately stop this player 11. I'm not going to show the number of serfs because they're going to be feeding this crossbowman over here. So it's going to be a little while before they go away. And it doesn't really matter. I'm going to destroy these towers because this storehouse that they have, their second storehouse up here, has stones in it. So I don't want them to refill that just for later. But these storehouses here, for those who don't know, and these two schoolhouses, so these two buildings here and these two buildings here are not player 11's building. They're player 8's buildings. I'm not going to touch them. So this is going to become a recurring thing. But right now what's happening is I started to get hit very hard over here. Because I wanted to come in and start taking out these crossbowmen. I do draw out the first two by just putting a bowman here and just firing at them and moving just right there. You can barely see them with the tree. But that's all I can kill from them with doing that. They don't replenish anymore right here. But I wanted to take them out therefore with knights, but I couldn't really focus on doing that until I took care of this, because around this time the AI script is going to send this wave. So it's a whole bunch of extra crossbowmen and bowmen and things like that, ranged units that I have to take care of. And as I mentioned, if this builds up, AI player 5 is going to send crossbowmen, which they're coming, but they're going to be coming this way instead of going up to this barracks up here. They're going to go around to get to it. They're going to try to go around through my buildings here to get to it. So I'm going to eventually separate one. I did here to hit at them to get their attention when they come, because you see, there they go. This was a new thing that I had to deal with by choosing not to destroy player 5. Which, in order to destroy player 5, I had to destroy player 8 at least, if not 7 also. And I skipped all those players this time, so that was a new challenge for me. But it wasn't that hard. And the amount of time it saved, it was just no brainer. But anyway, so now I'm going to start attacking the crossbowmen here as follows. The scout kept coming, and I knew that they were after one of these knights, or maybe more than one, but I was hoping it was just one, and it was. So I actually separated them one by one to see which one it was that they were after, and I found it was him. This guy, I mean. So I let them kill him. Hit this there. I did a link before dead trick to draw these troops out. And over here I have that building fence that I placed after I destroyed that blacksmith. And then I'm going to have my bowmen fire at their buildings or people or whatever, so that this becomes an AI trap for them to distract the scout from this point. Hopefully. It does somewhat, and it does buy me some time. This is going on in the background. That was the end of that. So I started to kill the crossbowman. I had to do it from here because player 8 was giving me trouble. Other groups from player 8, like bowmen, not the scout. They were going to come here no matter what, because these scouts' defense radius is this entire area, so I couldn't avoid them. They're doing that rotation that I talked about. And in this win, I actually avoided rotation completely with players 11, with players 13 and 12. The two orange players after this one. Made things a lot easier, and we'll see that. I'm going to get these knights out of here after I destroy this storehouse. I want to do it now. I'm going to destroy it now because I'll be attacked by these players later on. I'm going to destroy this inn just because that player 11, this player that I just killed, has a watchtower here. Hopefully I can starve it out, but it doesn't work out. He's still there when I don't want him to be. But there was no harm in me destroying that inn right now. Let's just take a look at my town at this point. I think it's pretty much done. I might add a little bit here and there. But that's what I ended with. But anyway, let's finish this thing. I restored this side panel there so that we can see the number of troops for player 13, which I'm going to put in view. I attack him almost immediately after. And I don't know if you can notice, but look in the map here at the top left. You'll see that I'm going to be exploring, I already am. I explored some land. I put 4 Vagabond here because there's strictly going to be a Link Before Dead sacrifice. I'm going to do a Link Before Dead twice for each of these that I do. So I'm going to have a Link Before Dead here that's going to link to one of these. And then once the troops arrive here, then I'm going to link them to this knight here by the barracks. Because what I want to do is, I could draw them straight home to him when I do a Link Before Dead from here. But I want to increase the flow of troops out of here as fast as possible, and that was, I think, the key thing to success this time with breaching the defenses, or to be more specific, sneaking into the town in 9 minutes from the start instead of 23 minutes like last time. So you'll see this, but what I'm going to first do is I'm going to hit on this smithy here on the side, and that's going to draw out some troops. But then I'm going to draw out another chunk using the close proximity trick with player 12 like I did last time to draw out other troops, and I'm going to draw them with that Link Before Dead to this knight. So the first big chunk is going to come to the top right here. The other big chunk is going to come over here. So one chunk is going to go in one direction, one's going to go in the other, so therefore we're going to have a continuous, very efficient flow. It was very quick, that's why I wanted to explain to you now what's happening. But you can see this flow now. And the map is starting to get heavy with troops, so I have to slow it down to ×3 at this point until a little later on that it clears up. Anyway, at this point I'm going to, now that this is clear, and I need to rewind that actually. I drew out the crossbowman in a different way. Might be cool to see this again anyway. So after them, I have this. Watch this, it's pretty cool. Saw that? So they don't die from the arrows. So that draws out another chunk, but then I'm going to draw out the crossbowman in the front here. I'm not going to, I had a bowman here, and I was going to fire at this group that's at an angle, but that starts the dangerous rotation of the crossbowmen that I talked about last time, that they complete, like these soldiers here, those who haven't watched it, they're rotating. Basically, in the map editor, we can see that we have, you see the 13 on the right, this is player 13, but then look at the number on the left. That's the priority. So the smaller the number, the more of a priority it has. So those groups are going to be what I call the primary, and then you have the backups. That's like the ones with higher numbers. So the ones right here, these are backups. They're not really that important. So what's going to happen is, if I kill this or lure out this group, which is a primary, then it's going to try to replenish it as fast as possible with another group that's around. So they're going to rotate, because when one moves, then another one that has more priority is going to be replaced, and it's a chain reaction. So I wanted to avoid that here, and I'm only going to draw out the crossbowmen in the front here that have least priority. That they're technically the backups, because they're the ones that attack you when they send waves at 5 hours if you play that long. So that's how I draw them out. I'm just going to bring them over here, or maybe way up here. Yeah, I'm going to bring them up here. And I do this on occasion. I hit this tower to draw out troops from player 12 so that they're not in my way. But this is what I was going to show before I had to talk about how I lured out the crossbowmen. So shockingly, that didn't get this knight group here, but it's alright. All I want is for this to clear up. That was what I was waiting for. And with no rotation from crossbowmen, hopefully it would have been better. And with hardly any non-ranged units in here. Because right now, look at the number of serfs that this player has. They have 70 serfs, but you don't see 70 serfs here. Because they're over here trying to feed these hungry troops. But the few serfs that are here are dedicated to replenishing these schoolhouses with gold. Let's look at this, 12 recruits being trained right now. That was one of the things that I was kind of hoping, banking on, that the serfs that were not here would make up for that in an empty inn. Pretty much people are starving to death, and it didn't matter. They were just refilling those schoolhouses with gold and training recruits just because the number of serfs was high even though they weren't here. So that made it difficult. I'm going to sneak in at 2 hours and 28 minutes. But at this time, this is building up here, and these knights are getting hungry. They will be soon, and I'll show that in a little bit, but it's going to be a problem. Basically, what happened was I didn't have a bowman here or crossbowman like I normally do to draw some troops to these other building traps to speed this up. So they built up here. Not to mention that I extracted a whole bunch of troops from player 13 and 12 along with the other waves. So this is going to be a problem, and that's what made the map heavy for the most part. But this is pretty much all the ranged units that I'm going to have for defense at home, and it worked out really well. I hardly ever lost one here. Hardly ever. But when I draw them this way to these other two murder holes, so to speak, I lost some here more often, but not a whole lot. And I would occasionally lose some here, but not a whole lot. And I did lose one, actually. This guy here is the backup. But let's just see me sneak in here. I broke them up into single leaders because of this. Some of my troops, when they would get alarmed, they would lunge forward and get killed. I think that's kind of related to the link before dead trick. It's something that draws the troop forward. That was beyond my control, and it was extremely hard to do this without playing at a slower game time speed like half speed, which I didn't. Just like my first win, I didn't. I was so tempted to, though, here. So I could save 3 or 4 more knights. But this knight right here, I did this on purpose because I'm going to do the link before dead trick to get all these non-ranged units out of here. And last time I had to engage with these warriors, but if they stop right here and go no further, then they're not going to be in close enough proximity to them to make them come down. So that handled that. I'm going to just keep focus on this, on the number of serfs. So they're in here now. I'm going to wait a little bit so I can take care of stuff at home and like put a bowman over here to kind of reduce this build up here to nothing. It'll be nothing soon enough. But I'm waiting for the secondary groups of the barbarians and all non-ranged units, basically. The pikemen that were over there, they already moved here where the primary pikeman group is, so that I can draw them out, because as long as they're a backup or a secondary, they have a defense radius of 1. But when they inherit the new position, they will have a defense radius that's greater than 1, and that's what will make them vulnerable to me getting their attention by hitting a nearby building. So that's what I'm waiting for, and I was hoping that all the groups would become primary, but one of them did not. So I had to make 2 sacrifices here instead of 1 to get them out. I'm going to make my way to the smithy here and hit that building from the front, and that will be enough to draw out all the current primary groups, I should say, at this time. I'm emptying towers that need to be emptied, and luckily they were not refilled. Because there were so few serfs in here, they were all feeding, the majority of them, I should say, were feeding the troops. So now I'm going to go and we're going to take a look at the number of recruits. A lot of recruits are being created right now, regardless of how few serfs were in here, as I mentioned earlier. So I got to block that. And this is that second group of warriors that was in here, but there's one more. Actually, I have to kill another one of my knights intentionally to get them out. So they're almost a primary group. These knights are primary. They're after him. They're next. Now they're a primary. Now they're after him. Now they're all out with the Link Before Dead. I have 4 knights left in here, and that's enough. So basically, I want to make my way to the barracks because at this point it's very crucial to block it because the recruits are still being created. And it's important again to have a knight hit at the schoolhouse or some building to draw the laborers there so that this player loses focus of training recruits somehow. So I had to work at it a little bit, but I used just these knights that I had in here to deplete the Sky of Serfs. So these knights here are hungry. I know I have to swap them, but this buildup is going to prevent passage. At least now it's okay, but it wasn't before. But more waves are going to come. I have a new group of 12 here that's fully fed. And this is the last group I'm going to have to swap here. My first time I played this, I had to swap them several times because so much time passed. They're almost dead. They said, feed me, feed me. Can they make it? Can they make it? Well, on the first try they didn't, but on a save reload they all made it, maybe except for one. Okay. Yeah, I messed up there, but I didn't care. I only lost 1 instead of 10. That was good enough for me. Let me keep focus on him. Still okay. So we're at 11, 10, 9. Okay, so at this point I've pretty much nailed him. Most of them or all of them have returned home from feeding the troops, and now I have 2 bowmen here to start drawing the troops this way to the left some to start eliminating this build-up, and I do within a few minutes. I was just hitting some crossbowmen from player 5 because they were coming this way again because, not because this was blocked, but because of this build-up. So this build-up was very hazardous. But also, at this point, player 14 was sending a group of crossbowmen this way, I guess because of build-up from I didn't catch earlier. So I have to take care of that, otherwise my town defense is going to be gone. So I'm going to take care of that very soon. So at this point, player 13 is eliminated. I just have to kill the crossbowmen and destroy the buildings. Here we go. Just this one group of crossbowmen in here, and that's it. See, the buildup is pretty much gone. I have a lot more knights at my disposal now than I did even that late in the game from last time, just based on all of the improvements I made. I'm going to start killing crossbowmen. This is how I do it. Do it fairly quickly and I only lose 4, maybe, if that. I have to empty this tower. No, I didn't. I'm doing it now. And all my knights are here ready to come in, but I find that this is a very safe way to do this. Be careful that you don't get in close proximity with them if you try this. And I have some troops here on the side attacking the buildings, but not surrounding it. Just as a quick side note, because last time when I mentioned player 13's crossbowmen that they were coming here because I engaged with these warriors here, that wasn't actually the case. If you engage with these warriors here, if anything, that would draw player 12, not player 14. Player 14's crossbowmen that I'm talking about are here. Their defense radius is pretty large. It actually just goes to right here. So I couldn't put a troop in front of the schoolhouse. I could put it to the tile to the left of the door and it would be okay. If you want to try that, that's fine. But for all three buildings, definitely you can just hit them from the left side and you will not alarm these crossbowmen from player 14. So that's why I was very cautious to just do that, and I didn't need to destroy them immediately. So it didn't matter if it was 5 minutes that it would take to destroy them. But I'm going to be hitting that tower to draw them out in chunks, and also player 8, because player 8 is going to be defending. So if I keep drawing them away from me and to my hometown, then everything will be okay. Well, mostly okay. As soon as I draw them out, including these scout, which I just did, now I can go for these buildings here, because the scout's defense radius, as I mentioned earlier, it covers all of these buildings. So I have to get them away in order to be able to do this without them coming and attacking me again. Because it'll be an endless loop until I get them out of this defense radius and kill them all that are coming at me before they stop, just like I showed way earlier when I was attacking player 15. And I guess we don't need the side panel because I'm not going to kill all the serfs in here. So my plan is to kill as many serfs as I can and destroy buildings with these bowmen down here. But also with all these knights that I have, I'm going to bring them in here like I did last time. But this time I'm going to avoid the rotation of these crossbowmen by not engaging with any of the groups. So that's something very important you have to be careful with here, that your bowmen do not hit either one of these nearby crossbowmen groups, because serfs will bump these crossbowmen into range even if they're out of range by default. You gotta watch that. Okay, so I made a link before dead sacrifice. After I did that one, then I destroyed these just in case, so I know that player 8 scout are out of range. After this is clear, there was some serf from player 8. He actually was coming to store a loaf of bread in one of these storehouses. It was just kind of random. So I'm going to move my knight down away, as you'll see in a moment. It's like, what? I thought he was going to go feed somebody. I was like, who is he feeding? That's what he was doing. So that kind of threw my attack off some. So I made another sacrifice to keep them away. Player 8. I started with 41 and I end with 32. Now, one thing I did that actually worked on a previous save reload that I didn't use is I had a group of 3 knights that came and took the initial arrows from them around this point. And that really helped, that I ended with 35 or 36 instead of 32. I lost all of those 3 in that group, but I saved the other ones. So now I'm going to go for this watchtower, which I already have been, so that it clears the path for my knights to come through here to destroy the barracks and storehouse. The other buildings should be gone by that time that they get here. Now what I'm going to do is there was a serf that was leaving the storehouse. I killed him with it. Then I did a link before dead. So it draws out these pikemen. And before I start hitting the storehouse, I hit once with this guy intentionally to draw the attention of player 8's bowman, who are coming now, so that they're not after these knights that are going to hit the storehouse. And I'm going to make my way over here and hit some buildings so that it draws the attention of these crossbowmen whose defense radius is greater than 1, as well as some knights from player 10. But it turns out the knights from player 10 were actually after these guys that are attacking the storehouse somehow. But it didn't matter because I wasn't banking on them living anyway. So in the meantime, all that's going on, I'm going to not engage with these crossbowmen. Not engage. Just I was like begging them to turn around. Please turn around. And they did. So that's pretty much the end of it. And before it ends, I just want to show that back at home was very strong. Didn't have any problems, and the scripted AI was coming at this point and helping me kill the ranged units from player 14 and 5 and maybe player 8, etc. for me at this time around at least. So overall it was a very a much easier win, I should say. And for those who want to see the victory banner, this is all you have to do to win. Just destroy those important military buildings for the 3 orange players, and that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't checked out the first video and you want to see more about my comments and how I devised this plan that is a little bit more obvious to you, it's in my KaM Remake video playlist, like this one is. So my previous record was 5 hours and 34 minutes and something seconds. Also, a team of 3 players that I mentioned in that video, they beat it in the same time. So I beat it in the same time as them, I should say. That was my goal the first time around. But now it's 2 hours and 15 minutes less, basically, than what they beat it. So definitely not doable in a co-op situation unless everyone has the patience to reload a lot of saves. But technically speaking, 3 players can beat it probably in 2 hours with this approach. Something like that, with sufficient reloads. But it should be easier if you beat it faster, you have less ways of attacking you. So thank you for watching and have a nice day.